All right, in this video, we're going to talk about how to hit solid shots every time.
Every time. All right, Shaun, so for solid contact, right, we need a few things in place that really help us down here by the ball and impact. And one of the things that we see with the pros virtually across the board, and it's in contrast with what we see with so many amateurs. And that has to do with how they move and rotate their upper body relative to the lateral movement that we find in the golf swing. Absolutely, and I think
part of that stems from a few different things.
Right.
One of them being the average amateur thinks that loading up somehow is going to help them hit it farther, so they load off the ball like they're going to hit a baseball, move their head,
right.
Head and torso way off the ball. On the other side of the spectrum, they've been taught to freeze their head. So I'm going to make a little mini motion here, watch out. And then they end up looking something like that.
Right.
Right? So those are the two ends of the spectrum, and good players don't do either one of those.
Right. So if we use Gear's 3D motion capture all the time. We've got a number of our tour players that
the camera's right here, actually.
Right. And so the way to think about this is if you swallow a pill, like say you're taking a leave before you go play, and that gets stuck right here in the middle of your chest, right? So it's right in the middle of your torso, both this way and this way. That's the middle of your rib cage, we'll call that. So what we see the professionals do is when they make a backswing, that pill will move to the right, away from the ball, about an inch. And then right after that, that's early backswing, then right after that, it starts recentering.
As it's still going.
As you're still rotating. So there's always rotation and lateral movement. Those two don't happen in sequence, they happen at the same time. It's a very important concept, and we'll explain it here with our anatomically correct model in just a second. So there's lateral movement as it's rotating, and then it recenters as it's still rotating back to zero, and then in the downswing it moves about 3 inches forward. Again, center of the torso, and then as it comes in impact, it kind of almost goes back about an inch to inch and a half. So it moves less than a golf ball in the backswing, and about 3 golf balls forward in the downswing.
And then maybe
from where it started.
And then maybe even kicks back a little.
And then kicks back about another golf ball by impact.
And we call that dynamic movement, right?
That's dynamic movement, but that happens while the body is closing in the backswing, opening in the downswing. Now, we mentioned our anatomically correct, modeled after Shaun model here. It's our alignment stick, our grout sponge.
I'm losing weight, man.
And a little foam ball. So
yeah.
This is what we see a lot of the pros do, and we'll just kind of point this up. So these represent the shoulder, the sponge is the shoulders, obviously the head, and then it rotates around the spine. So Shaun has a great way of thinking about this. He likes to have golfers focus on the tag of their golf shirt. So obviously right here behind the head.
So, like this.
Yep, so the middle of the chest is kind of a obtuse, concept, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows where the tag of their shirt is. So let's have you rotate like the pros do. Let's face the camera and do it.
Okay.
I'll just be the model here.
Okay.
So he's rotating, right? There's a little bit of movement. So basically the tag really hasn't moved away from the target. In some cases it actually will move
closer
towards the target because it starts back here and it moves this way. All right, so it's gonna move like this and then it's gonna move forward, right? So what we see a lot of golfers do is they'll put this rotation spot out here near the rear shoulder.
Yeah.
I can get it through a very well-made sponge.
There we go.
So again, we're gonna get rid of the head for a second demonstration, and they'll rotate around
a different pivot
this
point.
back shoulder. So show them what that looks like.
That would look like something like that.
So now this, over near this right shoulder becomes the theoretical pivot point where they're moving over where the right shoulder was. And that tag is moving a lot this way. Now,
absolutely.
That
just
creates
don't see
a ton of problems in the downswing.
Absolutely. And the interesting part about that, when you see a high level player hit balls, you don't see a lot of drastic head movements.
Right.
But you got to remember, try not to focus so much on your head when you're hitting shots.
That's right.
Try to make a kind of a tighter motion with your torso and chest, and that will keep the head where it needs to be.
So let's put this across the tag of your shirt.
Okay.
So we've got representing the tag. He's going to make a pro-like backswing. And you can see how centered, we'll call it, stays. Now downswing, it moves forward. Now let's combine those two. There we go.
And then back around.
And then back
Right?
around.
So
Then
I'm
it's gonna
kind of
fall
back where I
on this
started.
side. That's exactly
it's a
right.
great thought is
So
this shirt tag focus.
The shirt tag doesn't really vary too far from where it starts. It's going to rotate, right? But it doesn't really rock back and forth while the center of the body moves.
Yeah, and to tie it kind of back together with why you have to understand the whole picture. If you were to look at still shots of golf, let's say you saw a golfer at a dress,
Right.
and then you saw him just after transition, and then you saw him at impact, you would say, oh, his head is dead still.
Right.
But you remember, you're not seeing the whole picture. The whole picture is actually, there is some flow in there. Allowing the head to move a little bit creates some good flow in the swing. But to keep it stock still, like you could be tricked by those pictures and thinking, oh, I just need to keep my head dead still.
Right.
And by locking your head in place, which you see a lot of higher handicap golfers do, it restricts the dynamic motion, right?
Yes.
And restricts the amount of rotation that you can get in
the
the
best
swing.
players in the world, they obviously rotate their head in the golf swing, and a lot of them tilt their head. And that gives the illusion, a lot of cases, that the head's staying pretty centered. But it's actually moving. We can track that in gears, can put a bubble around the head, and it moves all around inside of that bubble.
In response to a really good, solid torso motion.
That's exactly right. So it comes from the rotation. The head's not really impeding that rotation. It needs to allow it to happen. You need that rotation. You need that orientation around the spine to hit the ball solid every time. Now, let's talk about the second aspect. All right, Shaun, the second piece of solid contact that we see missing from so many golfers, that all 100% of the pros that we've ever captured exhibit this. And that's how the left arm moves relative to the chest, both in the backswing and downswing. What do we see a lot of times with regard to the backswing? We'll start there.
I think a lot of times the amateur golfer or the higher handicapper will sling the arms across the body too much, like pin the arm back too low
the
and
arms
in.
and hands too deep, too early.
Yeah, and a couple reasons. One of them is they don't know how to use the right arm, so it affects where the left arm goes. So a lot of times I call it pulling the lawnmower, like starting the lawnmower. As a kid, I remember out there cranking on that thing. That motion there gets the arms too low and too deep across the body, right?
Right, and so your turn's maxed out very early in the golf swing, then you got to lift.
Yeah, and you've got no place to go but
And
up.
then it usually comes over and out.
Absolutely. So the first aspect of this, as far as lead arm relation to the chest, is try not to pull the right arm too far back. Let it fold down.
Right.
And keep it kind of in front of the shirt seam. Now, I gave a lesson the other day. She said, well, that doesn't seem right because my arms are out here. Well, I said, well, yes, but you got to remember there's a 90-degree turn that gives you your depth.
That's where I think pictures over the years and videos from a stationary camera really have bred this and kind of give the false impression that a lot of people think that, okay, let's say we start right here with our hands, center of our chest at impact, then at the top of the backswing, it goes all the way over here. So now my arm is all the way across my chest.
And low.
And low, and then at the top of the backswing, you're under turn.
See it all the time.
Now that we have the 3D capability to measure all these things, actually the lead arm goes from about here in the middle to about right there. That's it. It doesn't get, we don't see.
It's very deceptive on a video,
It's very
though.
deceptive. Now you add the body rotating, changing the planes, all of those things, you can see how that's easily misconstrued.
Yeah, absolutely.
So really, it's a left arm position of about whatever this angle here is, let's say 80 degrees to about 60 degrees.
Yeah, and to tie that all together, if we were to do it at a dress, it's up a little
Yep,
and in a little.
yep.
If I add the golf club to that with some wrist hinge and turn and some body tilt, that's a
That's top
perfect
your backswing.
backswing. So that left arm only went in, if I stand up straight and show where that arm is, it only went from there
That's
to
right.
there, right? So that puts you in a pretty good spot at the top as far as your arms in relation to your body.
Now the reason that's difficult for so many golfers, that so many golfers who struggle with getting that arm all the way across your chest, is what happens in the downswing.
Yeah, absolutely. So once they get it all the way across, right, it's got to come out at some point. So you get a few different problems.
That's right.
One is the up and over that we talked about.
Yep.
The other one is, in an attempt to get the club out to the ball, they start to shift and rotate. But since the hands are so far behind them, and they've been maybe taught to try to get as open as they can and not use their arms.
Right. Passive arm.
Passive arm.
Sure.
Well, passive arms, if I kept my arms in the position I had them at the top of the swing, there's no way, if this is my ball right here, kind of up off my lead heel, I'd have to have so much rotation and side bend to get to the ball, which I cannot physically do. Well, what is the golfer going to do? They're going to scoop.
You're going to start sliding the ball farther back because you're going to scoop it at first and you're going to hit it fat.
Yeah.
So you get like, well, that's not going to be much fun. So the ball starts creeping farther back, which starts encouraging what you're trying to get out of in the first place. So you've got this wrapped all the way around you and high. Now you're trying to turn, and you better tilt because, again, passive arms, you got to get the club head down. That's the bottom of my arc.
And the ball is here.
Ball's up here. So I either got to like hang back, pivot around this back foot now, right? Which lets me hit it fatter, or start to really get active with this. And we usually see both.
Yeah, and now let's say, because obviously it really helps to be in a good spot at the top, right? You can get in a good spot at the top and still mess things up, right? So let's say I'm in a good spot at the top, but I still have that mentality that I'm not using my arms and I'm holding them back. Well, I still have got a problem because I still can't get to the ball. So there is definitely an element in every good swing down at the bottom here where the arms swing and you get this angle.
Separation.
You get this left arm off the chest a little in this direction. It's not staying folded across the chest the whole time, and every good player has it. At some point, you got to get the arms from the right side of your body over here around your left as you're turning, and the good players don't keep it pinned. Actually, they gain some of that, don't they,
Now
Mike?
that's 100% of the pros in our database do that. Like it's all the different looks, all the different body styles, left-handers, right-handers, major champs, Ryder Cuppers, President's Cuppers. Every single pro that we've captured, touring pro that does that, gets this arm. Let's say they start at 80 degrees, whatever this angle here is. It's more, it's like 90 degrees at impact. So they're going 80, backswing right here, impact out here. Now you have the turn, now you have the forward shaft lean that everybody wants.
Now you got a pro looking impact.
Versus going, let's say 80, 30, then you recover it to here, and then you're left with this at impact.
Yeah.
So it's again, it's an example of how the pros are so good at knowing where to be at impact and then making the swing, or make the swing that allows that to happen the easiest.
Absolutely, and like Mike said, you know, the pros that we've worked with and we have in our database, they all swing it a lot different. But Mike and I have spent hours pouring through a lot of these swings and trying to figure out, well, what do they all do similarly?
We're looking for the commonalities.
Yeah, we're looking for commonalities of great players and their swings and trying to relay them to you. And this happens to be one of the universal ones, right?
Right.
We love those.
And we're not looking for elements of the swing that you've got to be super thin or super young or super flexible to do. Like taking your arm from here to here, pretty much everyone can do. Now, again, it's a quarter of a second downswing. Now, if you start taking your arm back here, the best in the world can't go from here to here in that quarter of a second. You're going to get stuck somewhere back in here. The club head's got to get to the ball. It doesn't do you any good to have forward shaft lean if this is as far as you can get this left arm off, because the club's back here, the ball's up here. You've got to give it up somewhere.
And for those of you that, a lot of people are enamored with forward shaft lean. So I've got a ball here. I mean, wouldn't it make sense if I want some forward shaft lean to have some rotation, but I want some swing across my body with my arms to get this right arm moving across my chest? And this almost like the opposite. I want this.
It's exactly right.
I want this right arm to go up against my chest. So now look, now this becomes easy, as long as the face is oriented in a good spot, to get the shaft lean that a lot of you guys are looking for, and we're trying to help you get, because it's important to playing good golf.
This isn't a handsy move, right? Guys that have 350 degrees of rotation of the club head at impact, which is extremely low rate of closure, are all doing this. Some of them do it the most.
Exactly right.
So it's getting this arm off the chest, getting this right arm more across it, which is the opposite of what happens in the backswing. So you need both of those elements with the left arm going, your lead arm going in the backswing and the downswing to hit the ball much more consistently. Controls this loft in the club face, which gives you more compression, not only more consistency, but more distance. If you like more distance instantly, we put together a video just for that. All you need to do to get that video is click on the link below in the first pinned comment, We'll ask for your name, your email, and we'll send it out to you immediately.
If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Once you do that, click on notifications so you know when we have a brand new video coming out right away.
Right, we want to make this channel's content just for you guys, just for your golf game. So leave us some comments down below if you'd like to see something that we haven't already covered or want to see it covered in a different way. We'll do our best to get that for you as soon as we can. And don't forget, if you want to hit the ball farther, click the link below in the first pinned comment.
Get you some instant distance.
Instant.